In the year 1618, a man once celebrated as a daring explorer, a favorite of Queen, and a pioneer of new worlds, met his end on a scaffold in London. His name, Sir Walter Raleigh. But what led him from royal favor to the chopping block? And what punishment did he endure along the way? Punishment far harsher than most realize. Sir Walter Raleigh was born around 1554 in Devon, England. He rose to courtly power under Queen Elizabeth I, becoming a knight in 1585. As a soldier, writer, and adventurer, Raleigh's ambition stretched across the Atlantic. He backed and organized voyages to the New World, attempts to establish English colonies, to explore, and to seize opportunity for crown and country. During this golden period, he enjoyed enormous favor, wealth, and influence. At court, he was elegant, witty, and daring, everything the Queen admired. He was deeply involved in exploration, in poetry, and in the patronage of the arts. For a time, it seemed there was no height beyond his reach. But success in Tudor England was fragile, and one misstep could destroy a lifetime of favor. In 1592, Raleigh secretly married Elizabeth Bessie Throckmorton, one of the Queen's ladies-in-waiting, without the Queen's permission. To offend the Virgin Queen's pride was no small matter. When word reached Elizabeth, her wrath was swift. Raleigh and his wife were thrown into the Tower of London, that infamous prison where ambition went to die. By modern standards, this might seem a minor punishment, but for Raleigh, whose identity was bound to royal favor and prestige, it was devastating. He had defied his monarch, and that single act shattered the foundation of his power. Though he was later released and partially restored to grace, the damage was done. His enemies had seen him fall, and the shadow of the tower would follow him for the rest of his life. The true depth of Raleigh's suffering began years later, after Queen Elizabeth's death in 1603. With the new reign of James I, everything changed. Raleigh had once been a symbol of Elizabeth's bold and independent spirit. But James, seeking peace with Spain and wary of Raleigh's influence, viewed him as a threat. Soon after the coronation, Raleigh was accused of treason in the so-called Maine Plot. The charges were weak, the evidence dubious, but politics demanded a scapegoat. He was found guilty, sentenced to death, and then, at the last moment, his sentence was commuted to life imprisonment in the Tower of London. For the next 13 years, from 1603 to 1616, Sir Walter Raleigh lived behind the tower's walls. The world outside moved on, but he remained trapped in a slow decay of mind and body. In letters, he described his condition, daily in danger of death by the palsy, nightly of suffocation by wasted and obstructed lungs. He grew sick, weak, and desolate. At one point, in utter despair, he attempted suicide with a table knife. The Tower of London was no dungeon of filth. It was a prison for nobles, but that hardly softened the blow. Isolation, loss of purpose, and the crushing weight of time turned it into a living grave. As one historian put it, his misery drawn out into a long thread without all hope. His punishment was not swift. It was drawn out, relentless, and unseen. While the world forgot him, he lived a death stretched over 13 years. In 1616, a flicker of opportunity returned. King James released Raleigh from the Tower, not pardoned, but freed under strict conditions. He was to lead an expedition to the New World, to Guyana, in search of gold. If successful, he might redeem himself. But the voyage proved a catastrophe. Storms ravaged his fleet. Disease swept through his men. And in the jungles of South America, disaster struck. His own son, Walter Jr., was killed in battle. No gold was found. Worse still, Raleigh's men attacked a Spanish outpost, directly violating the king's order to keep peace with Spain. The expedition that was meant to save him only sealed his fate. When Raleigh returned to England, there was no sympathy left. Spain demanded punishment, and James, eager to maintain peace, complied. Raleigh's death sentence from 1603 was revived. On the morning of October 29th, 1618, Sir Walter Raleigh was led to the scaffold at Westminster. Crowds gathered to see the once great hero face his end. Raleigh, ever composed, inspected the executioner's axe and remarked, "This is sharp medicine, but it is a physician for all diseases." Moments later, he gave his final command, "Strike, man, strike." The blade fell, and the life that had risen so high ended in one decisive stroke. But the true punishment, the slow erosion of freedom, dignity, and hope, had already done its work long before that day. Why was Raleigh treated so cruelly? Why such a drawn-out fall for a man once so admired? Part of the answer lies in court politics. Under Elizabeth, Raleigh had flourished. Under James, he was friendless. He had too many enemies and too few allies. When Elizabeth died, Raleigh lost protection that had shielded him. James I sought peace with Spain, and Raleigh, a symbol of English aggression and defiance, became a liability. His final expedition, which violated his pardon, gave James and the Spanish ambassador the excuse they needed. For the king, Raleigh's execution was not just punishment. It was diplomacy. It was a message to his court. Loyalty to the crown mattered more than fame, courage, or service. When we think of Raleigh's death, we imagine the axe and the scaffold. But his true punishment was slower, deeper, and crueler. 13 years of imprisonment, a slow decay of health, sanity, and hope. He endured isolation, illness, and despair. He saw his life's work crumble, his family suffer, and his name turn to disgrace. To die quickly would have been mercy. To live long enough to see himself undone, that was a real torment. From the Queen's favorite to a forgotten prisoner, from explorer of new worlds to captive in a stone cell. His story is one of irony. The man who helped England expand its horizons died, confined to a room barely larger than a cabin. And even when death finally came, it was not redemption. It was the king's convenience. In the years after his death, Raleigh's legend grew. He became more than a courtier or an explorer. He became a symbol of ambition punished, of power betrayed, of the thin line between glory and ruin. His writings from the Tower, including the history of the world, survive as testaments to his mind, still sharp, even in captivity. History remembers him not as a traitor, but as a man broken by politics, yet unbroken in spirit. Raleigh's life warns us that the heights of power are fragile and favor can vanish overnight. His punishment reminds us that sometimes the cruelest fate is not death itself, but the long, lonely years spent waiting for it. As we reflect on the life of Sir Walter Raleigh, we see a man who soared higher than most and fell harder than any. His punishment was not just the swing of an axe. It was years of decay, sickness, and silence, a slow unraveling of body and spirit. In the end, Raleigh's tragedy teaches a timeless truth. Power, when threatened, can inflict a justice more painful than death, a justice that kills not the body first, but the soul, and that, perhaps, is what made his punishment far worse than you imagine.